Welcome everyone. This is our weekly office hours where you can ask questions on MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, OSD, Windows in general, scripting, a bit of Azure here and there, shorthand. It's your chance to get some questions answered, and we have a good discussion here in the office hours from the ViaMonstra Academy. My name is Johan. I will be your host for the next 60 minutes here. And that being said, please bring me your questions. I am monitoring them here in the Zoom meeting for those of you that attended here. And also, of course, I'm monitoring the live feeds, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. The stream is live also on Twitter, but I don't see those comments showing up in the chat here, unfortunately. So let me see. I have a good comment from Matt there. Display bright and clear in Zoom. Yeah, I changed it back to the configuration I was running before, where I shared the screen directly on the Zoom client. It actually seems to be much better quality that way, other than to feed it through OBS, which I'm using for the live stream here. So that turned out to be good. Thank you for that confirmation. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions at all? All right, there's a question coming in from LinkedIn here. It's from Roland. Hi, I would like to grant permissions to only specific task sequences, but I think it cannot be done. I'm assuming you're referring to RBAC. I have not seen any ability to target specific sequences. Don't remember on the top of my head if they actually have security scopes or not, but I can certainly take a quick look here and see. They do have security scopes, so should be able to filter them out at least if I can't see them. If you're talking RBAC. So possibly that. I haven't tested, but I mean, it's here, and all other objects that support security scopes, they work that way. So maybe that can help. All right. Any other questions? All right. While we're waiting for more questions to come in, I just wanted you to know that, well, not this one. We have also published now the March dates for the Academy. And we have been trying to schedule them so that, again, folks in Europe will have a fighting chance of at least attending a few of them. So the first one in March is at 9, second 4:30, third one at 9, and then we do 2 ones in the afternoons here. So hoping you'll have a chance to join them as well, depending on when you are or where you are in the world. Okay. All right, let's see. Rakesh is asking on LinkedIn, what are your thoughts about the new remote help feature in Intune? And do you have any guess on how much it will cost? I haven't heard any pricing. I haven't tried out the feature either, but I know that Jürgen did. I wonder if he actually published a post on it also. Jürgen is a fellow Swede that runs this one here. Yeah, he did publish a post on it on the ForSysUp site. So the full post is here. We'll give you a good overview. I read it through when he posted it. It was a good post, but I didn't see any pricing info in it. I don't think that has been published yet. I mean, it's still in preview, so. But for those of you in the Zoom meeting, I will put this link in the chat here. For those of you who want to join the Zoom meeting, Very, very easy. Simply go to this URL here and go to office hours, and you can access the Zoom meeting from within there. So we have a good few people here on the Zoom call and a good few people online following the streams as well. So let's see. I was wanted to share a link that Julian posted in the LinkedIn chat. That is some documentation to security scopes, which is a good read. Thank you for that, Julian. Appreciate that help. So ConfigMgr security scopes, and I will post that link in the chat also. Like the community coming together and helping out, it's perfect. That's what it's all about, really. So good stuff. Will is asking, let's see. We have a couple of thousand netbooks that we want to load into Autopilot, but boss is not willing to pay. Yeah, that's a tough one. Unfortunately, Autopilot enrollments does require not just a regular Intune license, but also a bit of Azure in the mix. You need to have at least a Premium 1 plan for this to work. Most Autopilot organizations using Autopilot, they will have one of the larger bundles, like everything from an EMS, E3, E5, all the way up to the Microsoft 365 and equivalent Academy licenses. So there is no really way around that. Systems management does have a price tag to it. Intune in general is not that heavy, but it's still someone has to pay for that subscription. If you want a free deployment, your only option basically is good old-fashioned MDT. That's the only free deployment solution that Microsoft provides at the moment. But this is not systems management. This is just imaging. MDT offers very little to do on the machine while the machine has been deployed. Sure, you can start a sequence that installs some apps, but this is not a systems management platform. This is an OSD platform. Difference there. So, hope I answered that question. Isaac is commenting about the remote help thing, basically confirming that it is indeed still a public preview and should be general available around early summer. Cost has yet to be finalized. Thank you so much, Isaac, for that information. Why does that name sound so familiar? Now you made me curious. Ah, Program Manager, Microsoft. Here we go. Yeah, that will be pretty much a definite answer. Thank you so much for coming in and commenting on that. So you had a sort of official announcement there that that I just mentioned. All right, cool. Excellent. Oliver is asking, I would like to know if there are big organizations, plus 1,000 users that are using Autopilot for OSD. Very, let's see, accepting with hybrid Azure join. Blah, English. It's on my list to learn, I promise. Basically, the scenario is, see if I understand that question correctly. Well, the short summary is this organization wants to jump directly from a traditional WS-based deployment into Autopilot. And I think that And answer the first part, there are a lot of large organizations doing this. I was on a call this morning with an organization over in Europe. There are 55,000 clients. They are doing this in different capacities depending on where they are in the world. And there are plenty of organizations, their size and larger, that are in this environment. So the process itself is fairly well vetted by now. I was on the call late last night with an organization in Australia, uh, education, that they are just now going through the process of setting up everything from going from their own imaging into Autopilot. And Microsoft does have that scenario in ConfigMgr itself. Uh, and that scenario is Autopilot for existing devices, they call it. Uh, and it's been around for a while, and the idea is basically that you deploy Windows in such a way so when the machine boots up, it will automatically get the deployment profile and be automated associated with the group tag and therefore being assigned to the right group in Intune and therefore being enrolled as part of that process. The challenge with this process is that it doesn't give you too much of a control. The only control you have really is that particular sequence. If I view one here, it simply takes a JSON representation of your deployment profile and copies it into a certain folder in Windows, and then hope that Windows will figure it out when it comes up. And these days, this is working more reliable than it used to. But if you want to have more control, you basically have to script that. And that's what I've been working with a few organizations on recently, where we basically allow the sequence to come up in Windows in some capacity. And once we are in Windows, we will borrow, not that one, but this one. Uh, we will run a script that gets the device information, serial number, hardware hash, and all that good stuff. But instead of having the client upload it themselves, we send it off to a web service. And that particular web service is the one that actually does the upload to Intune of the device. Because in the scenario, you can put in many controls. You can see here I have loops. I'm waiting for certain things to happen, waiting for the machines to be imported, waiting for the machines that be in Intune. I can also include cleanup processes in this. If I'm trying to redo the same machine again, making sure it gets deleted first. And I can wait for assignments. I can just put it into different Intune groups, even assign a name if I want to the computer that conforms to my normal naming standard rather than the quite limiting versions that exist in the deployment profile. So there are good solutions out there for this. So either read up on this one here. I mean, it's there, it's simple, it's a supported scenario. If you want to have a little bit more control of the process, I started to document some of my findings here in this post, and basically solutions that we had to add in to get it more reliable, especially in larger environments. Because if you guys are still working with dynamic groups and you have a fairly large tenant, those updates can take a while. I've seen them take up to half an hour at worst. Well, other cases even more, but it could be anything from a few minutes or 10 minutes to 15 minutes. It takes a long time. So that's a good reading for you. Uh, let's see. Garrett is asking, do you see any further development for MDT, or are we all being pushed into Intune? I love MDT. Well, I also love MDT, obviously. I have I haven't seen any love from Microsoft on that product lately. In fact, the latest update was back in 2020 when they released a hotfix for UEFI. What me and some friends started to do was to fix it ourselves because MDT was already always designed from the get-go to be extended. So in GitHub, we have this little project uh, uh, where we basically wrote the PowerShell version extension to it. Nihas was helping us in the beginning, and then me, Michael Nystrom, and a bunch of other contributors have been chiming in to create the PowerShell version of MDT. And this one we have been quite good on updating recently, adding in some new scenarios and whatnot. But this is the only development that I have seen in the MDT type era right now. So if you haven't stumbled across this one, it's a good fun read. It allows you to do deployment over internet, over HTTPS. So I have deployment service up in Azure that I can deploy machines to. Something that the normal MDT does not support, but these days you can do it. So that's fun. All right, let's see. Andreas is asking, we have the challenge with hardware drivers, keeping up to date. Yeah, that is a bit of a pain. The only solution I have seen that is active right now is the modern driver management solutions. So basically, our friends over at Endpoint Manager. Well, first of all, let me just post this link in the chat there before I forget it. No, I don't need your help. Thank you. That was one of our kittens. Wanted to type something about PowerShell, apparently. Deployment kit. And the link. Good news is I saved my coffee. I was just about to take a sip of it. The cat was, not me. I also have on the plan to learn copy and paste. That is on my to-do list. So back to drivers, keeping them updated. MS Endpoint Manager. This solution here that just getting some extensions over to Intune at the moment. One of the recent releases added that, even BIOS configurations from Intune. Something I know that some of the vendors are working on as well. For example, HP have their own Connect platform now that does that through Intune proactive remediation. It's just that HP creates them for you when you work on the platform. But this is by far the best updating utility right now. This one downloads packages, config manager into config manager, and then offers a way to deploy them for updates. So I believe I have one of my sequences here configured for it. I have to double check. Let's see. Update drivers. That was a good name for it. So I'm just setting some variables in the beginning. And this is a user account that needs to have read access in config manager. The script is using the admin service in config manager to find what packages that are applicable. So first of all, we have the drive automation tool. That is a tool we use to just select the models we have, hit select the config manager platform, and then hit start, download, and import. So this is one part of the solution, the download tool itself, very easy to work with. And then they will be created as packages here inside of config manager. And then this particular script that I show you here is the one that does the update. So the switches driver update is the same script that you use for bare metal deployments, that you use for servicing a Windows 10, but each of these scenarios have different parameters. And you simply specify the endpoint on where you have your admin service. So in my opinion, this is the best option out there. Otherwise, you will have to basically script something yourself. Microsoft also only provides you with basically two tools to do online updates of drivers. One is the PnP util that came with Vista, pnputil.exe, and then there is a little bit more unknown one called PnP unattend that basically toggles is activated from a registry key, points to a path, and then start to inject those drivers. But this is pretty much it right now. As I have shown in probably every office hour the last month or so, month and a half, it is that Microsoft is indeed working on a cloud version of this, sort of. It's called the deployment service. Firmware, it was announced at Ignite last year, or last Ignite, and then also once again now in November for this Ignite. So if you haven't seen this information, check out the session, and this is what's coming. I haven't heard any new updates as of late, but again, November is not too far behind. Putting that link in the chat for you. All right, let's see what else we have. Garrett is asking, is your PowerShell version better? That is one of those it depends answers. We don't support all scenarios that MDT supports. For now, we are focused on bare metal deployment only. But what we did was that we enabled HTTPS deployments, peer-to-peering, so you can just speed up your deployments quite a bit. I will give you an example. Let's see here. It's not my most elegant drawings, but think you to have your MDT server up in Azure or in any data center that have internet access. So we have added MDT to it. We added the PowerShell extension to it, and you start to deploy machines in an office. Since it supports peer-to-peer, built-in branch cache functionality in Windows, only one client will download the content. All other deployments that happen on that subnet, the other clients, this one and this one, will get content from the first one. So you can speed up deployment a lot by doing this. And the more peer that have the content, the faster it goes, because branch cache can actually pull from multiple machines at the same time. And also a cool thing, if you update your images on the server, if you update your driver packages, because branch cache works with data deduplication, so block level changes, it only downloads the actual changes in those files. It's actually quite impressive. It's been around since Windows 7. It's a very stable protocol. Just don't run it currently on Server 22 because it's not working so good on that platform. Keep Server 2019, Server 2016, something like that. So in some scenarios, it's definitely better. In other scenarios, we don't have them. So there's there. I do recommend to play around with it. You can just install it side by side, your normal deployment share. Just create a new boot image and test it. MDT, as always, have its entire configuration in a folder. You just create a new folder. You never interfere with anything. You don't impact your current production deployment, but it allows you to test this side by side with your current MDT server and learn about it. So cool stuff there. Let's see. There was a follow-up comment all over here, LinkedIn, on LinkedIn. Hybrid Azure AD join and Autopilot is a concern. And the reason is that VPN support is a preview since 2020. So in terms of Autopilot and hybrid join, that one is considered a production-ready solution at this point in time. I haven't even noticed that one of the components were in preview because there are so many organizations out there that are actively using it right now and have been for a good year and a half. The challenge with hybrid join is that it's so incredibly painful to troubleshoot. There are many moving pieces, many timeouts that need to kick in the exact right order for things to work. You need to have multiple connectors because your on-premise Active Directory and Intune. The Intune needs to provide that offline domain object down to the client. The Intune must download a VPN client that is somehow connected back to the domain controller so that in the end, the machine can actually do that configuration. We did have Mr. Richard Hicks joining us 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. That session is available on the Academy. It's a free session, one of our mini courses that are free for the community. That recording is available. We turn out to be not just an hour and a half, it turned out to be a 2-hour webinar because the last half hour was just questions being hammered. But this is by far the best always on VPN training I've ever attended, ever. Good information about hybrid join, good information about common challenges, good information about troubleshooting this. So if you didn't have a chance to join us online for that one, simply get an account, enroll, and you can watch the recording. Downright great stuff. Price is right too. Free is good. All right. Let's see. Missed any questions? I hope not. I think I got through them all in the feed. Another comment. I have been asked to look into branch caching, peer caching, and speed up imaging. What do you suggest? Is it hard to set up? All the peer-to-peer solutions that Microsoft have available right now, they do have a bit of a learning curve to them. They do. We do offer a course on that on the Academy. This is also one of our mini courses, so this one is free. We did one last December, December 21st, and that recording is also available. But this is basically where we spend an hour and 45 minutes going through all these different options that are available for peer-to-peer from Microsoft and how they work and how you can work with them. So if you haven't seen this one, it's a good show. Friday night movie. Invite family and friends, the usual stuff. So I put the link there in the chat for you. This is what I do for a living, peer-to-peering. This is where I spend most of my days every day, configuring for customers from just a few hundred clients to several 100,000 clients. It is working, but there is a lot to learn to it. You can certainly get some speed from it. If your core interest is doing imaging in, say, a classroom, I will say that peer cache is going to give you the fastest initial deployment, but branch cache is going to be the more effective one. Because these protocols in the difference they work, where peer cache requires you that you download the entire file first, and then it can share that content with others. Branch cache works on a block level and we can start to share as soon as the first block is arriving on the client. Branch cache is also the only protocol that I know of or platform that can share content while in WinPE. Not for too many minutes, but still, it counts for performance. And it also can get, as I mentioned earlier, content from multiple sources at the same time. I have been providing some setup guides over the years. So I have a guide to guides, basically. It's a blog post where that's Frodo, by the way. Big fan. Looking forward to September and the series on Amazon. The different protocols and how you set them up and how you work with them. So if you haven't seen this one, it's a good read, definitely. But the cool thing about branch cache, I think, is, let me show you a post I wrote on our blog here a while ago. Here. I was comparing compression algorithms, as you do on a weekend, with how they affect branch cache performance. So I was basically testing a bunch of different compression tools, and then I was downloading packages from HP, 20 of them, to one of our branch office locations for testing. And the cool thing about it is these packages here, they are on disk when you download them from HP, about 32 gigs in size here. And thousands and thousands, or actually tens of thousands of small files. Not very effective to do on the right network. But if you instead package them into a Vim format, the size on the server will still be quite significant, but still 16 is better than 32. But when you transfer them over the network, it's only 8.7. Because among all these driver packages, on a block level, there are many identical blocks. And it's only the different blocks that are being transferred over the wires. If a client already have a block, it's not going to be downloaded. And that means that if you're now starting to do driver updates, so say that you have a driver package for this one here that you deployed last month, and then HP releases a new version. Well, the new version may be 1.5 gigs in size, but from a block level, it's not going to be. It may be 100 meg. So you only download the delta to your clients. Shorthand version is, if you master these technologies, if you do this right, you can usually get up to a 90% reduction of WAN link traffic. This is if you are using MDT with the extension, or if you are using ConfigMgr to do imaging. Intune can do peer-to-peering too, but the Intune is using delivery optimization, and Intune by default doesn't do OSD. But you can still benefit from it. DO, you can have not as good efficiency as branch cache or peer cache, but still 80% is way better than 0%. I think I've shared this before, but we did publish a blog recently on recommendations for Intune for delivery optimization. If you follow these recommendations compared to the default setup from Microsoft, you will see an amazing improvement in peer-to-peer effectiveness. We have seen improvements going from 5% up to maybe 60 and 80%, which in my book is a pretty good increase. So I'll put that in the chat as well. And we talk a little bit more about this one in that mini course as well. A little bit about the internals behind delivery optimization. Um, so that was a kind of a long answer to a pretty short question, but it's worth looking into. You can heavily optimize network performance by learning about the protocols that are actually in the platforms you're using. Um, Good stuff. All right, let's see what else. Yeah, the mini courses are free. That was a question about that. Uh, so so far, all the mini courses that we have in the academy, they are free. The ones that actually has a price to them, those are the 6 week long courses that we run. So 2 hours every week for 6 weeks. Whereas these are more like single events, single day events. But still, good information. All right, let's see. Uh, is there a way to have ConfigMgr to check for Windows 11 compatibility and create a report that includes uh, that information, basically? Um, I've been running the hardware readiness script through ConfigMgr and collected the capable or not capable type results. I did see, give me a second, I did see something there. Um, I mean, if you're co-management already, that is not co-management, is it? Uh, with Config Manager, you can certainly get the readiness reports uh, directly from reports. Work from here. Some of these reports are not too easy to find. But here you have readiness, Windows 11, and you see what device it is, etc., and why it was not ready for whatever reason. Um, I have seen someone doing something for Config Manager. I wonder if it was our friends at System Center dudes. Yes, it was. Not too bad. I'm pretty sure this is what you asked for. And the price for this one is also right for the community. Love it. Uh, I did hear about them recently announcing a subscription for all their reports and uh, Power BI stuff. Highly recommended. I've been a customer of them for years. Probably bought everything they had at one point in my life, but I'll put this link up in the chat for you. Just gonna uh, do a lowercase of some of the words so it doesn't appear that I'm screaming, which I'm not. Also, if you have update compliance, of course, you can tap into this report that Jan and Sandy and a few others were involved in. Possibly Nikolai as well. Forgot. Morris, Jan, and Sandy. This one also has a readiness report that looks nice. Uh, Downloadable from here, works in Intune, requires update compliance. All right, let's see what else. Um, Brian is asking for an update on the Windows 11 deployment guide, if all goes well this weekend. So that's the latest update on that one. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to write stuff. That's the bad part. Let's see. Tom is asking, or commenting rather, I love the hydration kit. However, once ConfigMgr is installed, is there a checklist or article for steps to do, such as boundaries, client deployment, etc.? Well, one of the instructors on the Academy, Andrew Johnson, he actually started that project and have already been nagging me about checking in some of the stuff, because we moved all these projects over to GitHub just a while ago. So let me show you what I mean here. On my blog, this is where you can download these or learn about these hydration kits. And as mentioned, they moved to GitHub. And Andrew has been submitting requests for those post-configuration things, not just documenting, but actually providing script for them, because that's not something I did in the initial script. I do have an older, probably should update that one too. No, it was here. Let's see in my repositories. Nope. Here. So this was one back in, that's several years old, but that's where I started with this. And this one has a little guide in it that basically takes you through all the post-action steps that you need to do. Part of the setup, but also actually after the setup, memory, SQL, all that good stuff. Now, put this link in the chat for you so you have it. And in addition to this, the guide that was mentioned earlier, again, there will be an 11.1 published this week, and if all goes well, this one also takes care of a lot of that information. So for example, I believe I have a copy here somewhere. I usually keep it around. Moment. A lot of screen and a lot of computers. English keyboard, how about that? This will be great. So in this guide here, there is module 5. It's basically taking you through that entire post configuration piece. And this is 30 some pages of just post config stuff. In this case, for software distribution, but with a specific purpose, obviously. But it does have all these discovery methods and boundaries and all that stuff you need to do afterwards. So there are some good guidance around there. The usual suspects, Niall Brady, System Center dudes, they also have a lot of these walkthrough guides, what to do once the system is up and running. So again, this is what I love about this ConfigMgr community. There are so many people out there providing downright amazing resources and just make them available for everybody else to use. So let's see. Mr. Wood commenting that Justin Chalfant has a great video for that. Can highly recommend those videos. So Justin is the founder of Patch My PC, and he runs. We also have a YouTube channel. Let me bring that one up. I think I have a link to it over here. I usually plug that channel every now and then in these office hours. So over here, this is obviously Mr. Justin himself. And then we have the YouTube channel here. And if you ever want to learn what's behind the scenes in ConfigMgr and primarily Windows Update, this is definitely the channel to watch because there is a lot of good stuff in this one here. Sort by date or feature, whatever you like to work with, but this is good information. Very, very technical videos. Some of these videos are ready to watch like 3 times to like fully get the content out of them. But see if I can go to the channel directly. That one. Yeah, that is a different view or different channel as well with a lot of tips for this also. Jordan, good friend, did one recently. So yeah, good stuff. All right, any other questions? So Darren had a question regarding Windows 10 OSD deployment does not move machines accounts to the correct OU. I have been exclusively using web services for that. I prefer to have one of them on my blog that you can borrow. So moving is a good word to search for. And this works regardless of deployment solution. Let's see if I can find it here. So basically, you deploy machines into one OU, or a machine you're re-imaging with the same name already exists in a different OU, and you want to move it over somewhere else. If a machine exists in ADE, it's not going to move it just because you say that you want to join the machine into a different OU. It does not work that way. You actually need something to move the account for you. And obviously, you have permissions to do so as well. But this is something I've been using for probably 10 years now, different versions of this web service. You can download the source code here, web service itself. This is the DLL, this is the source code. And it takes care of that. Because it's basically asking on the server side, not on the client side. It tells the server to move the object. So the only thing you need to do in your sequence is you need to tell it what the final OU is, and you need to invoke the script that actually moves the object. But again, it's not run on the client side. It's simply asking a web service and say, hey, this computer, please move it to this OU. And of course, you can have all sorts of error handling and waits until you make sure that that machine is in that OU. But it's fairly easy to set up. It takes you maybe half an hour. Requires IIS. It's an IIS-based web service built in C#. Simple. Other options for those of you who doesn't like coding things in C#, because that also have a bit of a learning curve to it. My good friend Michael Nystrom on his blog has an article on running REST PS as a service. This is a PowerShell-driven web service. This was the one I showed you when I talked about Autopilot earlier. amazingly good utility. What it basically means is that if I go back to this server that I showed you before, I have too many machines. Not right now, thank you. Uh, so this is what happens on the client. The client in this case is getting the hardware hash and some stuff, but the point is the client is simply running this command to invoke something on another server, on another machine. And then on that machine, there is another PowerShell script that simply accepts that and do something with it. You can use this for moving stuff into different OUs as well. You don't need to run a line of C# code. But I like this beautifulness of basically separating code that does server-side operation from the client to a machine that is actually on the server side of things. So the pink stuff here is to symbolize the web service code that handles the connections there. So hopefully that will be helpful. Brand is asking, how hard is it to replace the current version of ConfigMgr with a tech preview in your latest hydration kit? Well, actually not complicated at all. You can make a copy of the sequence and simply change it to not install ConfigMgr, but rather technical preview. If you don't mind, you can having to do some changes, I should say. In one of my earlier hydration kits, I believe it was the one for 2016. Yeah, I do have a ready-made sequence for technical preview. And you can have those in the same environment. That works perfectly fine. They can run in the same domain, same forest, same everything. As long as you don't mess up your boundaries, it works perfectly okay. What I did in ViaMonster is I simply used a pfSense router, or many, to separate out my technical preview clients and servers from my other servers. So simple as that. So the answer is yes. Darren is asking, does your web service scale for multiple OUs depending on locations, etc.? Well, in this case, I'm using normal MDT logic to figure out what that final OU is. As long as that variable is set, it's going to move it to that location. So you can prompt for an OU, you can have a database looking up an OU, you can have your own little script logic that figures out the OU. As long as that variable is set, it's going to move it to that location. So I've been building so many front ends over the years that one of the more commonly asked one is, okay, I would like a drop down with the OUs, thank you. All right, here's a drop down with the OUs. So easy enough. All right. See if there are any more questions locally. I don't see any. All right then. We are up on the hour, 3 p.m. in Chicago. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you for all the good questions. I hope to see you again next week here on the Academy. And next week, we're running it at Same time as today, 2 p.m. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Hope to see you next week.